Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everybody. If you've ever considered investing, even thought about it, I know it can be a little bit scary. This guy can answer all of your questions, and also something called passive investing, which I didn't know a lot about until I met him. And then I come to learn that it is exactly what it is, where you make an investment and then you sit back and reap the benefits passively of that investment. He knows all about that. Charlie Hardage is on the program with us. Charlie, welcome back. How you doing today?
Man, Steve, doing extremely well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, great to have you back here. You're a wealth of info. We've talked about a lot of stuff in previous episodes. You've also been a member of the military along the way in your journey. And one thing I know that's really important to you is leaving a legacy and helping others. And you help others in terms of investing, but we're talking about all different ways in terms of that legacy, right?
Yeah. So a few weeks ago, we talked about me being in the military, talked about mental health, PTSD. And while I think it's getting a lot destigmatized, I guess I should say, really want to give back and eventually open up some type of charity to help veterans, whether that's just, trips or getting together, providing more resources, just in a number of ways. And I don't really have that quite figured out now, but that is definitely something that my wife and I are extremely passionate about. And then she's on the nutrition side, and so she wants to open up a charity or a nonprofit that helps with food and basically take food waste from grocery stores, restaurants, and give that to homeless shelters and needy people, because there's a ton of food waste.
Oh my gosh.
Tons of food waste.
I had this conversation with a friend the other day at a restaurant, and we were just thinking about it. And then, we talked to some people who are in the restaurant industry. We all don't realize what is getting thrown away. It's disgusting. It's just, even something a day over an expiration date, perfectly fine to eat. I would eat it, bring it over.
Yeah.
But it's all being thrown away. Some of it is donated to shelters, but that's only a very small percentage, right?
Yeah. And it's usually unhealthy things like donuts, or something like that, bread maybe, which isn't necessarily unhealthy. But so through real estate, want to leave a legacy of having a charity that focuses on veterans and mental health, and then focuses on food, nutrition, and physical health. Two separate charities, but that's something that my wife and I are extremely passionate about.
You, having been in the military, and I'm going to go back here. You were injured in the military. You were literally shot.
Mm-hmm.
Afghanistan.
Yep.
And went through, that, and talk about trauma, and also the healing and everything going past that. What are you hearing about members of the military, PTSD, all of that? My perception is, and I just heard a story from a mom yesterday, in the Marines, her son was, and went through a lot, had PTSD. He got through it, and now he's kind of fell off the wagon and back into it, not taking meds, and things are not going well. And she's working to help him. But, that's just one story. I believe, and tell me that what you're hearing, a lot of this goes under the radar. We're not hearing it.
Yeah, 110% agree. It's really, really sad. I think a veteran takes their own life every 22 minutes, which is just insane. I don't know this stat, but it's like 2 or 3 or 4 times as many veterans commit suicide as the normal population. And, in the military, Steve, where mental health is not addressed, not talked about. I was never, from my first deployment, never, forced to go see mental health. And even if I did go see mental health, it was, it was considered a weakness, right? And so even if I had PTSD then, which I did, and I didn't know it, I would have lied and said, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm not that bad," right?
Well, you know what? Can I just jump in?
Yeah,
You probably knew, but you minimized it yourself,
yeah,
thinking like what you said. That's not that bad. I get through this. I don't need help like that.
yeah,
You don't realize.
yeah, totally. And there's so many different stages of PTSD. So just want to clarify that as well. Sometimes people wake up with nightmares multiple times a night. Sometimes a nightmare once a month, right? And so there's all these different stages, and just because you're maybe on that lower end, I think like I am, I'm probably in the low to mid range. Doesn't mean I don't have it, doesn't mean I can't get help. And I think that's something that took me a long time to realize. Maybe partly I was lying to myself, but also I didn't have it that bad, or that's what I thought. That doesn't mean I can't get help and can't get fixed. So I think that's extremely important. Very, very, very sad note, but our first deployment, I think we had 8 to 10 soldiers that were KIA. And since then, that deployment was in 2010. So 12, 13 years later, about 7 people that I can name off the top of my head, maybe a couple others that I'm forgetting, have ended their own lives. And it's sad, Steve, when it's almost 50-50, right? And it should not be that way. And I think, a lot of those people most of those people probably didn't get help or the help they needed. And a lot of times it's here's some medication. Is that better? And yeah, sure, it's a little better, but it doesn't really treat the cause. And to be transparent, I don't know how to fix it, right? I'm not a doctor, and I've not worked with those organizations that can fix it, but surely there's better ways than just here's some medication. Because while that helps, in my opinion, that's a temporary Band-Aid that is becoming a permanent Band-Aid that doesn't really help. You can't leave a Band-Aid on forever. And so it's near and dear to my heart. I don't know the answer. I wish I did, but that's something that I really, really want to address, with myself, with my friends, and just anyone that's out there that's struggling with it.
Well, you've got more than many of us have, and that is the insight. You know,
Yeah,
yeah, we don't have the answers, but you're way ahead than the rest of us in
sure.
knowing what the challenges are. Um, and if we all work together, we'll come up with the answers. But you're already taking the steps in terms of thinking, what can we do to support the members of our military that are going through a tough time now?
Yeah. And to be fair, it's not just military. I think military is,
Sure.
back in the day, it was called shell shock, and it's PTSD. Just didn't really have a term for it until semi-recently. But, you could be in a car accident, you could lose a friend, family member. So it's not just military.
Oh, totally. I have
And so,
friends.
yeah,
If I may share, really good friend of mine. I haven't seen him since probably January, and because he's kind of off doing his own thing,
yeah,
he's got a lot going on, PTSD being one of them. And part of that is because he saw his girlfriend have a stroke before, at like barely
yeah,
40 years old, and he's struggling and wrestling with that, and feels that he could have helped her better and all of that.
yeah,
And he kind of took himself off the grid. And I text him all the time, and he's like,
yeah.
"Yeah, no, I'm good." He actually found yoga of
Oh,
all things.
nice.
And I'm like, this is a guy, this is a regular dude that you'll find on a roof doing air conditioning refrigeration unit repair. And it's hard to picture him doing yoga. And he said, I found some YouTube videos and it's been helping me. But you're right. So many of us suffer from PTSD from traumas, whatever they may be.
Yeah. That's a good point about yoga. My wife actually teaches yoga, and the amount of the diversity of people in there is pretty cool.
Yeah.
There are veterans, and
Wow.
there's a lot of just different people, and I personally don't do yoga. I really should, but
I say the same thing.
helps with flexibility, helps with just body awareness, control, but really it's also a mind. And there's different types of yoga. There's some to get stronger, some to get more flexible, and some really just to kind of relax and ease your mind. And so, there's some that are kind of focused on those things, but in general, yoga helps with all of that. And so it's really neat to, I never thought yoga, never even thought about yoga. Who does yoga, right? And when my wife started doing it, she's like, man, this is awesome. And she loved it so much, she started teaching it. So yoga is a really, really,
Yeah.
really good thing to look into.
It really is. I have another friend who went to the doctor, routine checkup, and they discovered he had a heart defect.
Wow.
And they said, guess where you're going next? Right to the hospital, open heart surgery, very invasive, the healing process crazy, and he found yoga. And
Wow.
that's how he healed from that. And he swears by it. And I think we all have this, not to pivot in the yoga direction here, but we all have this perception of, I'm not in shape. I don't have that flexibility. I can't do that. Well, there's a lot you can do.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the yoga, it's about this.
Right.
Taking that time. So if you're not doing yoga, taking the time to think, call it meditate. That's another word that kind of scares people. Oh, I don't
Yeah.
meditate. No, meditate. You go for a walk, you're meditating.
Yeah.
As long as you're kind of quieting all the other stuff out.
Yeah.
But a lot of stuff people don't talk about, which I think we should.
Right. Yeah, totally agree. And the word meditation or yoga or mental health or PTSD is so taboo, and it shouldn't be, right? It's if you're sick, you go to the doctor. If your mind's not right, you shouldn't hold it in. You should go to a mental health professional to talk through it. So yeah, big, really big, and transparently only recently, but very big on the mental health aspect, because it affects a lot more people than we all know. We all know probably many people that struggle with it. And
What changed your life? Yeah, you again, being shot in Afghanistan, just mind blowing. And we've talked about it previously, but it was somebody that you didn't expect that was going to shoot you.
Yeah.
Let's say that, right? So that to me, you trusted somebody in the situation. They were connected with call it the other side.
Yeah.
To, even just to know that somebody was behind you and you're working with them and a shot gets fired. What helped you get through it? What has helped you so far?
I think immediately it was just the fact that I was alive and had a newborn on the way. My wife was 7.5 months pregnant. And so when I got home, she, besides being 7.5 months pregnant and through the delivery, she was taking care of me. A lot of physical help, physical therapy, but then, fast forward, I think it's really finding a purpose. And for a long time, because I wanted to make the military a career. And so for the longest time, I was just kind of struggling with, what do I do? I went back to IT sales, not because I loved it, but because that's what I knew. I really think, Steve, it was finally finding a purpose of real estate. And, I've said this many times, and I'll say this another million times, but passively investing really impacted me. And so I wanted to share that with the world. As corny as that sounds, wanted to share that with everyone, because most people don't know that's available. And so I think for me, it was finding a purpose. It was helping others. And eventually, the future state is having a couple different charities leave a legacy, not only for my community and people around me, but obviously my family as well. I have a 10-year-old daughter now. She is absolutely amazing. She's just phenomenal. And so it's really just being a good example for her, for my wife as well too, but especially my daughter, and showing that just because I do have PTSD doesn't mean that I can't be a good part of the community, and that it's not a disability, right? It's not something I should be ashamed about, which, maybe I was previously, but it's really just saying, hey, I have this, but it doesn't hold me back. Eventually it's only going to make me stronger. Maybe not today, still working through it, but eventually it will make me so much stronger, and I'll be able to share my story, which, I got to thank you so much, Steve, because sharing my story, that was the first time publicly a few weeks ago. And it's I've done it a few times since, and it's just, makes me feel good. And I hope one day my daughter can listen to these shows, podcast episodes, and just be like, wow, that took guts. That's amazing. And don't hide. If you're going through something, painful, doesn't mean you have to share it immediately. Doesn't mean you have to share all of it. But if you do share it, I guarantee you're going to help at least one other person, because they're going through that same thing, and maybe they've never heard someone else express it publicly. So I think to answer that in a very, very long answer, like I'm good at, is really just finding a purpose and living for that purpose.
Well, I appreciate you in sharing your story. And you know what? It doesn't mean that somebody has to be suffering from PTSD or in the military. If you're having some challenges mentally,
Right.
these aren't just right in your life, you can't figure it out. It's okay
Yeah.
to ask for help. Do you think, Charlie, that and being shot in the situation you were, um, you got a chance, a second chance? I'm here for a reason.
Yeah.
I could have went down and that could have been it.
Yeah. And I think that's when I first got injured, I went and saw a pain psychologist, and she kind of helped me with breathing and just relaxing. And that was brought up in the military, in other places, but especially in the military, it's called survivor's guilt. And that's one thing I told her was, I'm here for a reason. I don't know what that reason is yet, but I know I'm here for a reason. And it took me years and years to kind of find that reason, find that purpose. But I truly believe, Steve, that real estate is going to allow me to help others, both with passively investing and helping their financial outlook, but then also with these charities, leaving a legacy for my daughter, for veterans, for local communities with food service.
I believe in my journey, I'm believing it even more that things do happen for a reason.
Yeah,
And
agree.
that the woman I mentioned earlier, whose son is again having challenges and medication issues, and I'm just going to share this briefly and this, to illustrate, we're all here. You and I are here for a reason.
Right.
I said to her, even on a podcast, I said, "Have you heard there's a DNA test that can determine what medications may not work in somebody's chemistry and the ones that will?" And she's like, "I never even heard of that." It is helping in my family,
Wow.
and it's not expensive. It's the cost maximum. One company says you will never pay more than $300 for it if your insurance company just by chance doesn't cover it. She had no idea. I off air gave her all the information, a
Wow.
direct contact to the company. I said, this again, this intervention, whatever you want to call it, wasn't planned. We were just having a conversation, and I
Yeah.
literally had results from a family member sitting right here. And I even said, "This is," and it was accurate. Some doctors, feel bad. I don't know, grain of salt, whatever. People that I've talked to that I'm close to, if a medication is in the red column or the yellow column, you might want to stay away from them. And they've had issues with them. So to me, pretty accurate. But just
Wow.
sharing, you never know what's going to happen. Somebody could be listening to this and it resonates and say, you know what, that Charlie's a good guy, and I want to help.
Yeah. Wow.
I've been thinking the same thing. I want to help members of our military, but I'm not really sure. But I have these ideas and these resources. Let me get in contact. You never know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah. No, you're totally right. I do think everything happens for a reason. And I've never heard of that DNA test before. That's amazing. I love science. It just gets better all the time.
I need proof. So, if somebody said, "Hey, take the DNA test." Okay. Well, I have close friends that say that medications that they were on didn't feel right. Something wasn't right. It was in the red column
Wow.
or it was in the yellow column. Experiencing it in the yellow column with somebody in my family, and spot on. Two medications that they said, "That's not, this is not right." It's in the yellow column. Only three. And out of the three, two they were on at
Wow.
one point, even recently. So guess what? Not on them anymore, and pivoting in a different direction to maybe one in the green column. But I'm bringing it up because maybe it helps somebody else. I'm not
Yeah.
selling for the company. I'm not endorsing. I'm just saying it works. Makes sense. in my experience. Maybe others will say, I spoke to a doctor and he was like, I don't know, it's too early in the game for that. It's science.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. That's
Yeah, you never
amazing.
know. You never know. What's next for you? What would you love to see happen from this point in leaving a legacy?
Ooh, great question. I want to, to be honest, I only admitted to myself I had PTSD about 9 months ago.
Wow.
Started getting treatment about 6 months, 5 months
Oh,
ago.
wow.
Started sharing my story about 2 weeks ago.
Oh my God.
So for me, it's still kind of sharing my story, hoping and praying that someone reaches out to me just so I don't have all the answers, believe it or not. My daughter might think so. My wife definitely knows I don't, but you know, I can at least help someone and point them in the right direction. Maybe give them a resource or two they don't know about. I can sit and listen to them. So I think as I share my story and have people reach out to me, that'll help kind of guide me on. There's so many different veteran charities, nonprofits out there that help with mental health. And so it's probably also kind of getting a little more familiar with them to see exactly what they do.
Right.
But really, through my conversations with other people, I want to say, okay, this is a big need that I'm seeing. And then that would kind of guide me to, my charity and opening up something, whether that's, hey, let's all just hang out. Let's go grab a bite to eat. Let's go to the movies, a game, whatever it is. Maybe it's just connecting them with resources. I don't know yet, but I can't wait to uncover that and start that process. I'd love to open up a charity in the next few years.
Sure.
I don't know yet, though.
Imagine connecting. As soon as you said the word connecting, I was thinking the word connecting, and you said it,
Yeah.
even virtually in some aspect. But your story in you sharing it and this being so fresh that you're realizing that you had challenges, you're working on you. And once you've worked on you, then you can work to help others. But I commend you, admire you for thinking that way,
Yeah.
thinking that way. Others could say, well, I'm going to take care of myself. You're already taking care of yourself and your family, but you're also thinking about others, which was pretty amazing.
Yeah, Steve, I mean, you brought up virtually. I didn't even think about that. I could check Facebook groups and check like a Zoom kind of meetup, weekly or biweekly, monthly, whatever it is, meetup and just kind of, start that way. That's an easy thing to do, free and, easy thing
Yeah.
to do. So maybe that's where I'll start.
And
Thank
you
you.
know what? There is a mental health crisis in our country.
Yeah, totally.
Uh, this is according to the CDC just a few weeks ago. And one of the hardest hit cells, the demographics, the hardest hit cell of people suffering, teenage girls.
Wow.
That's number one. Number two is men, particularly younger guys, 20s, 30s, feel isolated and by themselves, which is the complete opposite because you would think, guys hanging out with their friends, playing golf, having a beer, going to a game, just whatever. You think they're all together, but they're not. And even if they are physically hanging, which is fantastic, they're not expressing. They're not talking about what's going on. It's kind of superficial. What else you want to drink? Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
See you soon. So maybe there's something in that in terms of the connection, some kind of, meet up together. And how fantastic would it be as, people in the military dealing with stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe the answer is always in us. We just need to find the answer,
Right.
and there's lots of
Totally.
stuff around, including taking care of our families and ourselves and all of that. But, you're onto something.
Yeah,
Really
and
excited
I
about it.
think you mentioned men feel isolated, and I think that's just the PTSD aspect of no one knows what I went through except me.
And then there's that.
And
I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking guys in general. Now you add that layer on top of it.
yeah,
People don't understand me. They don't understand what's going on. Oh my gosh, it's talk about challenging.
yeah, and I think in the military community, I mean, every deployment's different, right? One company, one unit could be here, one could be half a mile away, and totally different deployments. One could have a lot of, firefights and KIAs, and the other one could be like, yeah, we didn't see anyone. And so there are people that know what you went through, maybe not your exact specific, situation.
Sure.
But I guarantee there's people out there that have a very similar story, maybe different year, different place, but similar story. And I think that's
light on something very impactful, Survivor's Guild.
Yeah.
I have chills even thinking about that.
Yeah.
Here you made it through, but you didn't mentally in some regards, and that it just needs to be addressed. And there's treatment. And part of that is talking, like we're doing today.
For sure.
We're out of time. I could keep going. I'll just say,
me too.
I just want to come up with ideas. I love it. If anybody wants to reach out to you, even as an ally in the military, or even somebody thinking about investing, and this thing we talk about called passive investing, how do we find you?
Yeah, go to our website, hkigllc.com. Scroll to the bottom of the homepage. You can set some time up on my calendar, or there's a form to contact us, and I'll reach out to you.
Awesome talking with you, Charlie. It's a pleasure to have even met you, and thank you for your service.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
All right, and I'll be thinking of ideas. I'm not giving that one up. Yeah,
please.
All right, we'll talk soon.
All right, thank you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.